I'm talking about Stacks. And Stacks is a open source blockchain network that leverages the security and the capital of Bitcoin for decentralized apps and smart contracts. What does that mean? Bitcoin is the largest blockchain network. It is the biggest cryptocurrency by market cap, if you dare call it a cryptocurrency, but it doesn't have this fully expressive smart contract capability of something like an Ethereum. Basically what I'm saying is Bitcoin is a very specialized tool. It is a network that is the most decentralized and the most secure, and it is a money. It's a monetary asset, and that's the very basic, very simple, very plain, very vanilla job that it does, but it does that job better than anything else in the world. So what Bitcoin gives up in flexibility and scalability and speed and in the ability to write all different kinds of programs to run on it, it makes up for with its decentralization, its security, and the assurances that come with Bitcoin. So people who love Bitcoin have been like, hey, can we not create something that would allow us to have the same kind of applications that bring DeFi and NFTs and all kinds of more creative use cases to that Bitcoin ecosystem? That's why they created Stacks. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about Stacks. If you learn anything, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's go through. I'm just going to read this word for word for you. Stacks is a blockchain linked to Bitcoin by its consensus mechanism that spans two chains. This is called proof of transfer. It enables Stacks to leverage Bitcoin security, enables Stacks apps to use Bitcoin state despite being a separate blockchain. So Bitcoin and Stacks have a relationship to where if Bitcoin disappears, Stacks can no longer exist. Stacks actually recycles the proof of work that Bitcoin does, so that every time that Stacks mines a block, that block of all the transactions and all the information that happened in the Stacks blockchain, they take that information, they hash it. That means they turn it into like a long string of numbers, and then they put that as a transaction into the next Bitcoin block. So if you look at a Bitcoin block, there's going to be one transaction in there that holds all of the information of what is the current state of the Stacks blockchain. So in doing that, what they're actually doing is they're using the security of Bitcoin to secure all the information of what happens on Stacks. So if anything were ever to happen to Stacks, they could look at the Bitcoin blockchain and find out what the last known truth of Stacks was, because Stacks leverages the security of Bitcoin. All right, so these two things are tied very closely together. And yes, anybody could take any data and write it to the Bitcoin blockchain, right? It's just a ledger, a place to store information. But what makes Stacks different is this proof of transfer. So how do you create a Stacks block on the Stacks blockchain? Well, just as a Bitcoin miner uses electricity to run a computer to be able to mine the next block of Bitcoin and earn that Bitcoin block reward and those transaction fees, they spend electricity to earn Bitcoin. Well, a Stacks miner, they spend Bitcoin to earn Stacks. So they're recycling the energy that was already used in Bitcoin, and then they're again using that same, what they earned from that Bitcoin mining to now mine the Stacks blocks. So they're not creating a whole brand new system. They're just recycling what was already done. So I say it again, a Bitcoin miner spends electricity to mine Bitcoin, and a Stacks miner spends Bitcoin to mine Stacks. So these two systems are linked directly together. They're locked and they work in tandem, okay? Stacks is always reading Bitcoin to see what is the latest truth of the network. Now, why does Stacks exist? Because it allows us to have decentralized applications, things like a decentralized exchange where you can swap assets. You want to trade without going to a centralized exchange? You need a decentralized app to do that. And the smart contracts that are written in the Clarity smart contract language on Stacks allow you to do that. Or if you want to have NFTs or collectibles, digital items, in order to have those, you need to have fully expressive smart contracts, and you need to have a blockchain with, the ability to have those kinds of things. Nobody wants to put that on Bitcoin because Bitcoin doesn't have that full capability in the same way as Ethereum or Solana or Avalanche or Terra or any of these other proof of stake chains. So that's what Stacks is bringing to the Bitcoin ecosystem. Now, if we keep rolling down here, you'll see some of these things like proof of transfer, which is the consensus mechanism that we spoke about. And a cool thing about proof of transfer is if I'm in Stacks and I have, you know, as little as 100 STX tokens, what I can do is I can lock those tokens up in a process called stacking. And what I'm doing is I'm voting on which version of the Stacks blockchain is the truth. And in exchange for me stacking my STX, those Stacks miners who are committing Bitcoin for the opportunity to win Stacks, one of them is selected, they get the block reward of new STX tokens. And the rest of them who've committed Bitcoin, that Bitcoin, it doesn't get wasted. They don't burn it. What they do is they reward all the people who stacked STX tokens to vote on what was the true version of the Stacks chain. And all of the committed Bitcoin from those Stacks miners that was not successful in mining that next block is distributed to all the STX stackers. So you can stack STX and earn a yield of anywhere between 7 to 10% Bitcoin. So basically you got Bitcoin DeFi without going to a centralized custodian. This is another one of the reasons why Stacks is different than many, many other chains. Of course, we talk about the Clarity smart contracts, which is a language similar to Solidity, but it's written so that it's human readable. Now, I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't tell you too much detail, but the main thing to understand about Stacks is that it's very closely tied to Bitcoin. It has smart contracts similar to what you would find on Ethereum. You can stack STX to take advantage of that proof of transfer consensus mechanism and earn 7 to 10% yield in Bitcoin. And you can even trigger actions on the Stacks blockchain by using a native Bitcoin transaction to trigger something to happen on Stacks because of the way that they are interlinked together so closely. So why would they build on Bitcoin? We talked about security. Bitcoin is the most decentralized, meaning there is the most different copies replicated of that whole entire list of every transaction in history. That is the most distributed network in all of the entire crypto economy. There is nothing that is relatively close to how decentralized Bitcoin is. And because it's so decentralized, that is one of the ways of protecting the network from bad actors. And a second reason why is because Bitcoin has the most hash power out of any proof of work chain, meaning if somebody wanted to come in and start mining blocks with bad transactions in them, they would have to have a lot of equipment to do that. So these two things, the decentralization and the security, give Bitcoin some assurances that if something is written to that Bitcoin chain, it will not be undone. You can bet your bottom dollar on it. And so writing applications for Stacks that will eventually settle on Bitcoin gives you a different level of assurances than doing something on a smaller chain that has a little bit more vulnerabilities or maybe greater centralization is what they sacrifice when they do things like they emphasize the speed or the transaction throughput. So here it just explains a transaction is nearly impossible to reverse or change once it has been settled on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's network effects are hard to deny. It's a $1 trillion asset. Stacks is a very young blockchain, just over a year old. But as they're able to develop more different software that goes onto this chain, they will eventually be able to unlock that $1 trillion of capital that has been sitting on the sidelines and open up a world of things like Bitcoin-backed loans, Bitcoin-backed stablecoins, Bitcoin DeFi, the ability to buy NFTs with Bitcoin, and just really put that capital to use. Because people who've made a lot of money in Bitcoin, they don't want to sell their Bitcoin, but they want to use it. They don't want it to just sit there. They want to be able to lend it out and earn interest on it. They want to be able to put it in motion. And that's the promise of stacks. So what are some of the most popular applications that people are using on stacks? Well, if you use Ethereum, you've probably heard of Uniswap. On stacks, they have Arcadico, they have StackSwap, and they have Alex. Alex is the most popular decentralized exchange on stacks if you're counting the total value locked in the network, in the protocol. They have a native token called Alex, and recently released something called AT-Alex, which is a liquid staking token, which allows you to stake, but also be able to take loans out against that collateral. So very similar to Luna, B Luna on the Terra ecosystem, or ST ETH on Ethereum, if you're more familiar there. If you're a person who likes to buy NFTs, there's a couple of very popular NFT platforms. We have STX NFT, and you also have Byzantium. And these are two platforms where people can buy, sell, trade, even create NFT collections. And if you're going to use stacks, the two main wallets would be the Hero wallet, and they have the Xverse wallet, which is the mobile wallet. And these are the basics. Where can you buy stacks? You can get it on Coinbase. You can get it on crypto.com. You can get it on OKCoin. It's popping up more and more places. So take a look. If you're into Bitcoin, this may be something that is interesting to you. Stacks is a pretty new blockchain. It's very small. I want to say that the market cap is under 2.5 billion. So you could imagine that if the promises they make actually come to fruition, unlocking that capital, that $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin network, allowing people to be more productive with the assets that they've held for so many years since 2009, when Bitcoin first hit the scene, there would be an extremely, extremely large total addressable market for people who'd be interested in something like this. So if you learned anything today, please do me a favor, like this, subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 100 subscribers. We're really just trying to spread the news about, you know, Bitcoin, crypto, DeFi, NFTs, and all that stuff that you really need to navigate this very fast moving world. And if you didn't notice, I'm in my kitchen right now. I'm just here being me, trying to give you what I would want if I was just starting out. So this is Canucks. We are the new school, and I'll see you next time.